there is kind of a little hope. Representative Darin LaHood, yes. Congressman Representative Darin LaHood has proposed a residency-based taxation bill. It's with the House and Means Committee. Now, I think he did it or somebody else did this in the former Trump administration. Correct. And it didn't go anywhere. My understanding was because COVID happened, but it might be for some other reason. But now he has resubmitted it. And that would mean that you have US citizens, if it gets passed, and it's a very big if it gets passed, that you could apply, and you may not qualify, but you could apply to transfer, not give up your citizenship, but to be taxed residence-based, take on residence-based taxation rather than citizen-based taxation. And it's, you know, you have to meet certain criteria.
Yes.
So what do you want to explain what the summary of that is, if it comes in, what they're proposing at least?
Yeah, if it did come in, and that, as you say, is a very big if. You would see, I think, quite a bit of relief for people with all the requirements that we've been speaking about here. The vast majority of people, you know, that were out there, as long as they're going to be overseas for a certain length of time, and it's usually at least 3 years from the date of making the election for doing it, because you got to be careful if you're going to be moving back within that time. The election, in essence, becomes voided if it happens, if you move back within 3 years.
Yes, that's right.
Making it. But then, in essence, you're not losing your citizenship, but you are treated as if you're not a resident of the U.S. For the purposes of taxation. And so you'd only be taxed
not a citizen. You're treated
as a resident. You're still a citizen.
Yeah.
You're always a citizen.
Yes, but you're not treated.
You would, in essence, as we said before, it would be residence-based taxation.
Right.
And so you'd be left with U.S. source incomes from from the investments in the U.S., real estate, deferred U.S. compensation, etc. Which would be very good, because for a lot of people it would eliminate the need for those filings. It would eliminate the need for informational forms such as the FBAR, the 5471, probably the 8621 for the PFICs as well, the Form 8938. All of these very big nuisance forms that would be out there would probably go by the wayside for people from that point onwards who did it. And the thresholds for it having any real financial impact for doing it are quite high, and for most people they wouldn't necessarily even apply, because there's some exemptions from having to deal with what's called the, again, mark-to-market or deemed disposal of capital assets, and that's for people who elect out of this U.S. citizenship-based taxation. There is potentially a sting that he's put in the tail on that bill, which says you got to treat everything as being sold. But there's a big exemption there if you've been overseas for long enough, or if you have below a certain amount of assets, which at the moment they're treating it as the same as the lifetime credit for estate tax. And that's, like I said, it's just shy of 14 million in 2025.
It's a great exemption.
And it's, I think, meant to potentially go up to about 15 million in 2026.
Yeah.
So you would imagine for the vast majority of people, you'd probably be out of those requirements. But the big if is whether this could actually get passed.
Yeah.